So we bring to you former Texas Ranger Will Clark. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. How are y'all?
Well, the Rangers are tied for their best record ever through 55 games, so I feel like we're all doing pretty darn good.
Yeah, it's a great thing. Bruce Bochy has the guys going good. I've had a chance to tune in a few times and see the offense kind of explode, so that's a real good thing for the Metroplex.
I was kind of curious, Will, about do you have much of a relationship with Bochy, and what was your connection with him?
Oh yeah, I mean, he was with the Giants for the whole time that I was there as special assistant and all that, and we had plenty of conversations, not only about stuff on the field, but then stuff off the field. He's a big outdoorsman, as am I.
So when it comes, Will, I love what you're doing with Burnsy, with Eric Burns. That's really fun.
Are you going to tell him about your shirt?
I'm actually wearing this shirt today, Will, that my wife got me and laid on my bed last night. And obviously it's from you, because I was like, this shirt is awesome, which says, my wife says, I have two faults. I don't listen, and something else.
Yeah, some of those shirts that we've been wearing on the podcast and all that have been kind of funny and leads to different conversations. But, one of the things that we've been doing is we just keeping it lighthearted. I mean, not only from the baseball end, but then Eric will bring up something else. The other day we were watching the American Kennel Club, watching a bunch of dogs walk around. So we've been having a lot of fun with it.
Well, I know you talked about Bochy kind of a little bit earlier in the year, and you're like, hey, he's doing a great job of riding the hot hand. He's had guys like Ezekiel Duran get hot after the Seager injury, and he's really done a great job with using kind of his 3 or 4 guys that aren't maybe everyday players. And I'd love for you to kind of talk about that to the listener, where you're talking about how Boch is riding hot hands and it's really helping out the team.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, one of the great hallmarks of, the managers that are, Hall of Fame candidates, Dusty, Bochy, guys like that, they kind of go not only with, their gut instinct, but like you said, riding a hot hand. And even though, some of these guys aren't everyday players, if you have an injury and you stick somebody in, he gets hot, well, then he becomes your everyday guy. And, Boch really does a great job of recognizing that. And, he's been doing a great job with it. That's why, the Rangers have 35 wins and they're in first place.
I think a lot of us like the combination of Bochy and Dusty together. I think that's positive for all of us.
Well,
you're right. You're right. I mean, these guys have been there. They've been through the battles. They know not only, their lineups, but they know their utility guys. They really do a great job working the bullpen. The starters are going to do their thing, but, they work in the bullpen really good and making sure guys, get quality innings, but yet at the same time are rested.
Well, I think from the Studio 22 baseball show, the thing that I keep getting out of the stories that you tell from the past is that y'all policed the game differently back then. Like, y'all policed it on your own. And I could be wrong. Do you think the game is policed by the players the same way as it was back then?
No, I don't think it's quite as policed. We used to after everybody, after the game was over, we'd have a little round table and everybody grab a few beers and sit and talk about the game. And, hey, look, you needed to be over here in cutoff position. And, hey, look, why did we throw to this base? We should have thrown to this base, and kept the double play in order, those kind of things. And that kind of camaraderie has gone by the wayside. I know that I've been in a few clubhouses lately, and especially after a loss, guys just bolt out of there. It's like, hey, that's a perfect time to actually review what went on during the game and learn some of our mistakes and improve from our mistakes. And that's where the game's changed quite a bit now.
Does that give you the opportunity for like a teammate to say, hey, maybe you should jab back and forth with Gary Carter a little bit, so you have that conversation where, hey, if you hit me, they're going to hit you too?
Yeah, no, that's a fun little conversation. Those days are kind of gone. I mean, we used to be able. All right, look, somebody drilled you were able to get retaliation, and then it was over and done with. Now, somebody drills you, and then you drill them, somebody gets ejected. So, it's really changed the game. It's changed the way kind of we police the game on the field. But I prefer the old school than this new school.
Well, that kind of fits into the conversation that we were having earlier about, kind of comforting or pushing a player. Did you know in all of your locker rooms you can push this guy, but you can't push that guy because then he'll fold up and he won't give you his best.
Exactly. And you're perfectly correct on that. There's some guys. I mean, you really got to pat them on the back the whole time. And for me personally, I was not that guy. I was the kick you in the ass guy. And we had other guys that were more political. And I'd go up to them and I'd say, hey, look, can you talk to, Bob for me? Because if I talk to him, it's not going to be pretty. And, so we had different guys that policed in different ways, but at the same time, the message got across.
Will Clark joining us here on 105.3 The Fan. Will, the NCAA baseball tournament's about to start this weekend, and I've watched your deal with the Mississippi State team, and it was really fun to watch, and obviously a lot of it is about you as being one of the best players on that team. Can you tell me the difference of, I don't know if joy or attitude, what it is when you're playing regional tournaments for Mississippi State versus playing in, let's say, playoff games for the Giants or the Rangers?
It's amateur ball is quite different than pro ball. From the standpoint of, if you're in amateur ball and you make it, to like the postseason, and let's say the tournament and then the regionals or whatever, you want to keep that going because as a student athlete, you only have 3 or 4 years and then your career's kind of done. And so you want those memories. Pro ball is a little different because, especially some of the better players, they're going to be around for a while. And so, they know that they got more games coming, whereas on the amateur side, you don't. And on top of that, the fans on the college side, I've really, really enjoyed seeing the college baseball scene across the country really pick up from the standpoint of the fans. Because, I mean, there were certain stadiums that we would go into, when I was at State, and you'd have 400 or 500 people, and now that same stadium will have, 5,000 or 6,000. So I'm really enjoying watching where the college game has gone.
How helpful have the explosion of maybe streaming and other media sources been for that? Because I feel like you could watch the College World Series back in the day, and that was about it on TV. And now you can pick up all kinds of these, not only regional games, but regular season games too.
Yeah, you're exactly correct. Matter of fact, myself and my teammates, when we were at Mississippi State, we played in the first ever televised game during the weekend. Like you said before, it was always just College World Series only. And, we played at Alabama, and it was the first ever ESPN broadcast, during a regular season. So seeing from where it went there to now seeing, not only the SEC network picking up all the games, but then, your West Coast teams and all that, it's really been a lot of fun from my end of things, just watching how college baseball has evolved and how much more attention it's getting, how much more the fans have gotten into it. And on top of that, if you look at it from a pro perspective, these guys that are coming out of college are a little bit more polished, and so they get drafted higher.
Will Clark joining us here on the KNC Masterpiece on 105.3 The Fan. And Will, you were my first ever non-Rangers player that I was like, that's my favorite player. And then you wind up on my baseball team, and I'm like, wow, Will Clark's playing for my baseball team. And I see that, you got your number retired with the Giants. Now, obviously, that'd be awesome if the Rangers retired your number at some point, but that's a different story for a different day.
We could talk to some people.
What is it like? Can you kind of describe the feeling of getting your number retired and what you're going through in that process of trying to create a speech or the commencement of it all?
Yeah, the Giants came to me in 2019 and said, we're going to retire a jersey, and I was just blown away. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is unbelievable. And then, needless to say, COVID hit, and then the next year, the season started up, and they weren't drawing a pack house. I mean, because they were only allowed, a certain amount of people into the stadium. And so the Giants wanted to do it when it was a packed house. So, the next year is 22. And so I said, well, let's do 22 and 22. And the Giants looked at me and go, Jesus, you're doing a marketing job for us. So, we did it. And, but I literally, and it's kind of funny. I mean, I do a lot of public speaking, but I mean, I had the speech written in less than a week. And, after 3 years, I tweaked it a little bit and then practiced it about 100 times. So when I got out there on the field, I knew the speech backwards and forwards, and I just wanted to let everybody have a lot of fun with it.
Will, you're one of our heroes. Who were some of your heroes growing up?
Ooh.
So I grew up in New Orleans, Louisiana, and you would think that, the Astros being the closest team, or even the Braves, that they'd have been on TV back then, but that wasn't the case. It was actually the Royals. And so I grew up being a huge George Brett fan.
Makes sense.
And, it's kind of funny, and then a little bit later on, I was a Mike Schmidt fan. And then to play against those guys and have those guys come down to first base, and be able to talk to your idols, that was pretty special.
When you mentioned George Brett, this is immediately what jumped to mind, and I'm kind of like this sometimes.
Pine tar?
No, not that,
okay.
But actually kind of like that. Do you ever think people mistake intensity for being a jerk? Because
oh yeah,
that's what I think too. Because sometimes people,
by far. Hey, look, they did it to me. They're like, oh, he's cocky, he's arrogant, and all that. I'm like, hey, no, I just knew what I could do, and I went out there and did it. And if you didn't like it, too bad, because I'm trying to beat the hell out of you. And that's one thing that you even mentioned pine tar. I mean, I grew up in the South. We sweat to death, so I had more pine tar than anything. I'm not taking that bat and tomahawking it up in the stands like some of these guys do. So when I saw George Brett piling on a pine tar, I'm like, I'm going to do that too, because I'm not cutting his bat loose until the ball's gone. So.
Was there ever an incident that happened that you like kind of pictured yourself running out of the dugout and going berserk on somebody because you're like, I feel that?
Well, I've run out the dugout and got berserk on a few people. I can tell you that. We had quite a few brawls back in the day, so it was a lot of fun. But one of the great memories that I have about being a Ranger is the fact that I was able to come to the organization and be part of 96 and 98, which were the first ever, division crowns, for the Ranger organization or, the Senator organization. And so, to be part of that is pride filled, and, you remember your teammates because of those reasons.
I'm always curious about this because Mike played for the Rangers, for the Mets, at the time the Indians, and the Nationals. And
I got to sit with Will, by the way, with you when I was on AAA for the Diamondbacks, and we played New Orleans. So you were there for that series.
Yeah.
Got to meet you. It was awesome.
Yeah. I remember Mike, and then a few years later, you're in the big leagues and just dealing right away, and I'm like, man, that's awesome how, you made the adjustment, you made the jump, and you became a very, very quality big leaguer.
Thanks.
We talked with even Derek Holland a little bit about like making a competition of pitching for yourself. Like you go in and you create games while you're in the bullpen for yourself so you can work on, location and things like that. Did you ever have any games that you played as a hitter that you're like, man, kids need to play these kinds of games? I don't know if it's like, hey, I'm going to work on hitting opposite field or whatever, but did you have any games that you played?
Without a shadow of a doubt, we did. Let's say you're in the batting cage early and, there's probably a lot of listeners out there hit off a tee and stuff like that. We'd make it a game. Hey, look, I'm going to hit the crossbar on the L screen, or I'm going to hit it off of this pole or whatever it might be. And, it actually, believe it or not, it ups your concentration. That'd be like Mike, in the bullpen, and he's, trying new grips on pitches. He's he's making a game out of it, but at the same time, he's trying to perfect something new.
On the flip side, I gotta know, was there ever a pitcher that you hated, not because y'all didn't get along, but because you were like, God, this son of a is too good and I can't figure this out?
You know what? I mean, when you're in the middle of the lineup, you're 2, 3, 4 guys, 3, 4, 5, whatever it might be, you're going to face everybody. You're going to face everybody's number one. And, my general manager, Al Rosen, my manager, Roger Craig, they told me that when they gave me the job. They said, you're not coming out the lineup. You're facing everybody, so you might as well suck it up. And I actually enjoyed that. Them telling me that made it more of a challenge. And so I was never scared of anybody in the batter's box, but the one thing that always gave you problems and you had to work harder at it was guys with good changeups. If you got a slider or if you got a split finger or if you got a curveball, they all have different rotations so you can see it. But the fastball and the changeup are kind of the same. And so, anybody that had a good changeup, you're not scared of him, but you got your work cut out for you. And especially a guy like Maddox and Glavine, people like that, John Tudor, Jamie Moyer, they'd get a few inches off the plate a little bit, and you had to work your tail off to get a base hit.
Will, the Rangers are having a great season. I'm just wondering from a position player standpoint, the one thing that has faltered for them has been giving up runs late, giving up late leads. How tough is it as a position player when your bullpen kind of is giving up something you worked so hard to get?
You know what? We're all in this together. Whether you're a position player, whether you're a pitcher, whether you're a starter, whether you're a reliever. And the one thing that I tried to do as a veteran ball player and also kind of a leader on the team was I'd pat everybody on the back. Perfect example would be like when I was in San Francisco, Rod Beck. He got called up and he ran off 13 straight saves. And then Freddie McGriff took him in the upper tank one day, and he was just sitting in his locker, looked like he had been run over with a truck. And I walked up, patted him on the back. I said, hey, this is the big leagues, big boy. I said, you got to pick yourself up. I said, because guess what? Tomorrow you're going to get another streak going. And those kind of things, those positive reinforcements really kind of helped out your teammates. And it's the same thing with the Rangers right now. The guys, let's say, yeah, they do give up a lead here late in the game or whatever it might be. Hey, go up, pat him on the back. Hey, look, I believe in you. Keep going, man. You're gonna figure it out. And when you figure it out, I'll be there to witness it.
And, I think, Will, you have a great story, and I think it was Kenny Rogers' perfect game regarding, hey, just don't throw it high. But the Rangers right now have probably the best pitching we've ever seen as a Rangers fan base. When DeGrom's healthy, he's one of the best pitchers we've ever seen, aside from Nolan maybe. But when you have that kind of pitching going to the mound, how do you feel as a fielder, as a hitter, when you got guys going on the mound that are giving you that opportunity to win? What do you feel your responsibility is?
As an offensive player, your responsibility is, hey, look, we got these guys on the mound. They're dealing, they're throwing strikes. Hey, all we need to do, get them a run or two, let them relax a little bit out there, and then they'll settle in and do their job. And, as far as from the defensive side, you do have the guys that throw strikes and they had the ball put in play. Well, it keeps you on your toes on the defensive side, and you actually want to be more aggressive and make plays for them. So, it's twofold. And those guys like that, when they do get on a roll, all of a sudden you look up and you're in first place in the division, which is exactly what's going on with the Rangers right now.
It's awesome.
Well, Will, as you're doing this, I have two people that know you well that wanted to say hello. First, the doctor of defense, Mark McLemore, who I get to work with and do the pre- and post games with. And then Pooch, Bill Fahey, your old third base coach, says, what's up?
Oh, man, that's awesome. So Mac and I, we tied down the right side of the infield for a few years together, and at one point we were the two elder statesmen on the team. So, I told you I was the guy that was kind of in your face. Mac was the guy that was behind the scenes. So, he and I, till this day, we got a great rapport. I mean, every time we see each other, we give each other big hugs, and it's so much fun, listening to him on the broadcast. He does a great job. And then Bill Fahey was my third base coach over there in San Francisco. he waved me around third base quite a bit, and it was a lot of fun being around him and not only his wife but his family, watching them grow up and get to be ball players themselves.
Man, outstanding stuff. We love having you on with us today, and we would love to have you, honestly, back at any point.
Look, hey, John Blake reached out to me yesterday, the day before, and said that if you didn't mind. I was like, oh hell yeah, any day of the week, because you guys are awesome. Y'all do a great job, with the Rangers and kind of dissecting what's going on, and keep up the great work. And I know Bruce Bochy. Like I said, I know him real well. I know how he manages, what style he goes about. If he's got to talk to a player, it's behind closed doors. Nobody ever knows what's going on besides him and the player. Players respect him for that reason, and he runs an unbelievable game. He knows when to bring the relievers in, when not to, when to give guys days off. And so, the people there in the Metroplex, they are seeing a Hall of Famer at work, and he's one of the best. He's one of the best ever at his job.
Well, it sounds like your time's up, too. Thank you very much, Will. Appreciate it, man.
That was my radar detector. I got to slow down.
Be safe, man.
All right, guys, y'all have a great day, and thanks so much.
Yes, sir.